In a world divided by conflict,
What the heck is this, Brian? Grimm's fairy tale?
Yes, it was the first thing we thought of when we read your proposals.
a process is doomed before it ever starts.
How can you sit there and threaten us with pay cuts when you're giving management staff all big raises?
Two sides of the same coin.
We have been serious. It's you guys making it difficult to get anything done.
Will go head to head.
Problem is, we don't have any job security around this place anymore.
If you haven't noticed, the city hasn't been doing very well lately.
You have to bargain with us, so let's get serious, Brian.
We have a solution. We need employees that come to work, period.
Negotiations gone wrong.
Brian, here's the problem. You come to the table, but you have not put forth any proposal at all.
We're still working on our proposal, but the answer to yours is no. Hey, good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Brian. Good to see you.
I'm glad you could come in and meet with me today.
No problem.
How have things been going?
Oh, I've been knee-deep in contract negotiations lately, and
Well, it's good to get an opportunity to talk about bargaining before we get started.
I agree.
I brought a list of our protocols from our last round of bargaining.
Okay.
And I thought, that might give us a starting point on some of the things that we need to talk about. First of all, meeting times and dates.
Very much like we did last time. I think it was Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then also, I think it worked better when we had lunches brought in or there for us, so we weren't breaking halfway through the negotiations and getting off track.
How would you like to work the exchange of proposals?
Well, I got an idea. Instead of exchanging written proposals, I was thinking more along the lines of listing issues and having discussions rather than talking about the written language.
That sounds interesting.
I think as long as we stick to the issues and really separate out the non-economic and the economic issues, it should be beneficial to both parties.
Well, that makes sense to me. I mean, we're always going to talk about wages and insurance.
Yeah.
I mean, we probably only have two items that we want to talk about, and that's overtime and absenteeism.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll type these protocols off, and I'll send them over and let you take a look at them. If we get those ironed out, then we could sign off on them at the beginning of bargaining.
Okay.
Well, thanks a lot.
Sure.
Morning, Brian. Yeah, I brought you a bottle of water.
Thank you.
I'd like to introduce my team. On my left is Tammy, the local president. And on my right is Don, who is our steward and elected bargaining team member.
Hey, good morning, Chris. It's good to see you again. This morning I have Leisha with us, our Chief Financial Officer, and I also have Mary, one of our managers.
Let's get started with our issues. As we previously discussed, we have prepared a list starting with what we believe are the easiest non-economic issues, progressing through to the last two economic issues, insurance and wages. And we prepared a list for you on that. I'll give it to you guys, pass those out. Thank you.
We prepared a list for you the same way.
What do we do next? Should we start discussing our issues?
Well, I think if you remember in our training, we learned the first thing we have to do is separate the issues into three groups. Non-economic items, combination items, and economic items. And then we have to prioritize them from easiest to most difficult.
Housekeeping items are usually discussed at the first, progressing through to the more difficult issues, and we'll conclude with insurance, wages, and other global issues.
Well, we have already prioritized our list, but we're going to have to discuss the issues enough to determine which order we want to work through each of the issues in.
Are we locked into the order after we make that list?
No, we can change anything we want by mutual agreement. We're going to need flexibility to adapt as we address issues through the bargaining. Is everyone okay with starting with housekeeping items first?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I see the union has safety next on their list. I bet this is going to be an economic issue for new equipment.
No, the union is interested in doing all we can. For instance, employee safety committees have been shown to improve safety in the workplace.
Is it possible that some options could actually end up costing more money, like training and equipment?
Yes, but we are primarily interested in discussing non-economic items with this issue. We already have training and uniforms on our list, so we can deal with our economic components later. Who knows? Our suggestions might even save the employer some money.
Now you have my attention.
So I can add safety as our next non-economic item.
I think it will be a good starting point. Everyone has an interest in safety.
Okay, what's next? Management?
The second item from our list is, how can we improve the grievance procedure?
That was on our list as well. We only had one grievance last year and were able to have it mediated prior to the hearing by the neutral. We would like to make mediation part of the process.
We think a mediation step in the grievance procedure would be mutually beneficial and could actually save money. Both FMCS and SERB offer free mediation services.
There are more costs than just fees for arbitration. It costs the employer lost productivity every time we meet for any reason. Is the union proposing mediation as an automatic step, or would it be mutual agreement?
We really hadn't thought about it, but I don't think we want to take everything to mediation.
If we can resolve issues without arbitration, I'm all for it. However, the city is not interested in mediation as an automatic step.
I think we can accept that. What is the city's issue with the grievance procedure?
Currently, the grievance procedure allows for the arbitration of oral and written reprimands. We do not think it's a good use of our resources. We also think we might be able to save some money by exploring other alternative dispute resolution processes.
Well, we're interested in hearing your ideas. Can we add the grievance procedure to the next list and discuss it later?
Okay, I have that down on the list. What does the union have next?
The next item on the list is leave scheduling. We want to make sure that employees are able to take the leave that they have accrued.
Another one of our issues is vacation leave, but I believe it should go later because it may tie in with our issues on sick leave usage and overtime. Maybe our issue on promotions should go next.
Oh, great. What is the issue? Management can hire anybody they want without considering seniority?
That would be nice, but that's not our primary concern. We're interested in some flexibility with positions that would require special licensure or certification.
Should that be a combination issue since it might also involve training?
Didn't you say training is one of the union's issues? Could we discuss any training components then?
Yes, that sounds good to me. Does it make sense to follow promotions with leave and vacation requests since they both appear next on our list?
Well, if it's okay with everyone, I'll go ahead and write promotions down on the list next as non-economic item 4, and then I'll follow it with leave request. Is that okay?
Yes.
Are there any more non-economic issues?
The union's next issue is training.
I'm sure that's an economic issue. The union wants more time off and money for training.
Well, I'm not going to deny that we'd like to see more resources for training. We realize the city's resources are limited, but we'd also be interested in discussing other programs that would be mutually beneficial and have a minimal cost as well. We believe the issue of training belongs in the combination category.
I guess that leaves sick leave as our last non-economic issue then. We believe sick leave usage is contributing to high overtime costs, which is the city's next issue. We believe it is a combination issue that will probably be more than just training.
Okay, I wrote sick leave down as our last non-economic item. Does everybody agree that training should be next under combination items?
The last combination item the city have is overtime. We believe that comp time is contributing to high overtime costs, but our goal is to find ways to cut overtime costs.
That sounds like a challenging issue. Maybe we should talk about uniforms next.
I imagine the union wants to increase the uniform allowance. Isn't that just an economic issue?
Well, our costs are going up, and we recognize uniform allowance is a global issue. We would like to discuss the issue of summer uniform, the summer dress, particularly when staff is working in hot conditions outside. We're interested in some flexibility in what we can wear in hot conditions.
I'm fine with that, provided the clothing is safe and presents a professional appearance.
It sounds like we can agree to uniforms as the next combination item followed by overtime. If increasing the uniform allowance is on the table, we can handle it later as a global item.
Okay, I'll write those down. And then that leaves us with insurance and wages.
We want to talk about some non-economic components for insurance. You might not be aware, but our central office has created a new healthcare unit dedicated solely to providing quality healthcare services, information sharing, and cost containment.
What do you have in mind? A joint healthcare committee?
Yes, and any other things that we can do to keep us healthy and contain costs.
I think a joint healthcare committee is a great idea, provided that the city has the final say when it comes to purchasing services. Is the union looking for co-management of the healthcare services?
No, the union is only proposing an advisory role. However, we do want our input to be taken seriously. We believe we can play an important role in containing costs for our members without reducing the quality of our health care offered.
Well, fantastic. I mean, we're already off to a great start. Why don't we take a short break and we'll come back and start working on housekeeping items.
Okay, we are up to sick leave. It's the union's turn to chart. Do we have any volunteers?
I will. What are our interests with sick leave? Let's start with management.
Well, I believe that people who do not show up to work should suffer some type of consequences.
Well, is that an interest or is that a position?
Isn't that our interest?
We can't get our work done timely without reliable people. Without adequate staffing to meet our production requirements, we can't satisfy our customers or have to incur overtime costs to meet our production requirements.
If the union was smart, these would be their interests too.
Remember, we are only supposed to be discussing issues, not making personal comments. Does management have any more issues?
Morale seems to be low and our staffing is short.
Is that it for management's interests? Okay, what are some union interests?
Well, we have a lot of parents who have kids who need time off for emergencies and childcare.
And people complain we have no personal time. We are working too much. Overtime is killing us. That is why people don't show up. You are definitely right about it impacting morale. Mary?
We're also concerned more about overtime scheduling. People could use more advance notice to schedule their time off.
Are there any more interests?
I can't say if there are any others, but what if we think of something else later?
As I remember practical negotiations training, we can go back and make changes anytime as long as there's an agreement.
Great. Let's move on to the next step. Let's try to identify mutual interests.
Except for morale, I don't see any other mutual interest.
No, wait a minute. The union agrees with the company that meeting production requirements, satisfying the customers, and the amount of overtime being lessened are all important to us. I mean, if it were not for all these things, we would be out of work. So maybe there are some mutual interests here.
Okay, I'll mark the items of mutual interest.
Now that we have our list of mutual and separate interests, we can use them as a starting point to brainstorm some options for solutions.
How do we know if an idea is good or not?
It doesn't matter at this point. We're supposed to come up with as many ideas as possible, whether we like them or not.
I have one, a no-fault attendance program. 3 strikes and you're out.
Now, wait a second. How can that be a win-win option? That is just a company position, and it has nothing to do with our interests.
I think the idea is for us to discuss all kinds of options. It doesn't matter if we agree with them or not. We just need to evaluate them later.
Well, my option is unlimited personal time, so that way people don't have to play games or get into trouble to get out of work.
How about voluntary overtime and a better work schedule? So people can know well enough in advance when they have to work. Then they can plan for their time off.
How about voluntary overtime? But if we don't have sufficient staffing, then mandate overtime based on seniority.
We are serious about sick leave abuse, and we've been thinking that maybe a separate discipline track for it will be helpful. It would emphasize just how important it is to the city.
Can we discuss discipline since it wasn't one of our issues?
There are no restrictions on what we decide as long as we're all in agreement.
Okay, I'll add it to the list.
I'm sorry, I don't see how this procedure is helping us. I mean, it doesn't seem to be any closer to a solution.
I don't agree. In our old way, we were always battling over just 2 positions, and now we have already come up with a list of possible solutions, and some of them are looking pretty promising. I think we should continue.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Are we ready to get this thing wrapped up? Where's Don this morning?
He's tied up, but he may be in later.
Is this okay?
Yes, we still have a quorum.
Great. Last session, we had the opportunity to review SERB data and hear Alicia's economic presentation. If it's okay, I'd like to just talk first. We only have 4 global issues. Maybe we could generate some solutions without charting them.
Okay, we can take notes and then chart them if necessary.
The 4 global issues are uniforms, overtime, comp time, insurance, and wages. Uniforms is your issue. You want to start with some interest first?
Okay, what about overtime?
The issue is really comp time. When someone uses comp time, we give someone else time and have to cover the shift. We should just get rid of it.
If staffing was adequate, you wouldn't need to call anybody else in.
I think we would all like more staffing, but after the funding cuts we've had, it's just not possible.
Overtime and comp time is important to our members. However, we are having morale issues with younger workers who are frequently mandated to work overtime.
Yes, and there seems to be a direct correlation between mandated overtime and call-offs. This creates even more comp time at time and a half.
Is there any savings from reducing comp time?
It's tricky, but yes, based on our current usage, we believe we can reduce our payroll costs about 0.5% for every 40-hour reduction in the comp time bank.
We may have some ideas, but before we generate any options, where are you on insurance?
I'm afraid insurance is a public issue with our board. Many private sector employers, the employee contribution is already 15 to 20%. SERB data is also showing that in Central Ohio, the average employee contribution is 15%. It's very important to our board that we get to those levels.
We will need a wage increase covering those costs, plus wages close to the increases that SERB is reporting.
Other employers are passing health care costs to employees with just average increases. Increasing the employee's health care contribution from 12 to 15% will save the city approximately 1.5% from our total payroll expenses.
So that's equivalent to 0.5% of our wages for every percent increase to the employee's contribution.
Yes, but remember, the 0.5% is deducted from income for tax purposes, so the employee doesn't actually experience a full 0.5% decrease in wages.
Can we have a short caucus and break before we begin generating options?
Good idea.
Shall we chart?
The talking seems to be working. Why don't we see if we can brainstorm some global solutions? What about uniforms first?
We haven't had an increase in 9 years. Prices have gone up. How about $200 for an option?
That will increase our payroll costs by 0.5%. We have to take that into consideration with our total costs.
Okay, then $300 would increase payroll by 0.75%.
Yes, and $100 would increase it by 0.25%.
I think we get the idea about uniforms. Why don't we talk about comp time and overtime next?
I have one. How about eliminating it?
Slow down, Mary.
It's an option. Here's another. How about reducing it 80 hours?
How about keeping it the same or even increasing it 40 hours?
Those are all options, but remember, each 40-hour increment will either increase or decrease our payroll costs by about 0.5%.
Here's a combination option, a $200 increase to uniforms and reduction of comp time by 20 hours.
How about $200 in 60 hours?
It would be a no-cost exchange at $200 and 40 hours.
How about $200 for the uniforms? We decrease comp time by 40 hours, but we put it in policy rather than have it in the contract.
How would that protect us from changes in the policy? What's your interest?
We would like the ability to evaluate the language through the Labor Management Committee, and if we can make adjustments, we could easily change it in the policy.
We need some protection through contract language.
How about $200 for the uniforms, decreasing comp time by 40 hours, but by mutual agreement, we could enter into an MOU altering the terms of the contract.
I think we can do that if the MOU language sunsets at the end of the contract. Then we may have the original language as status quo at the beginning of the next negotiations.
What about insurance and wages? I'm sure nobody wants to have any increases to employee contributions for health insurance. However, the board is really insisting that we get a 15% employee contribution on insurance.
Incremental changes might be easier. How about increasing the contribution 1% each year along with a 3% wage increase each year?
We can't afford that. I have no idea what our costs will even be in the second and third years. We've had huge increases to insurance in the past.
Alicia, what do you think is affordable? We can test several ideas. How about an incremental increase each year with 3%, 2.5%, and 2.5%?
Still high, and our future costs are unknown. I would still be nervous with incremental increases and a 2.5% wage increase each year.
Remember, we do have a healthcare committee to help save costs.
That's true, but any increase could put us into the red. We would like to continue to see increases in our year-end balance.
Is it possible that you are underestimating future revenue?
Maybe, but I'm not comfortable taking a risk.
Increasing the contribution saves us 1.5%, right?
Yes, or incrementally, 0.5% each year.
Okay. How about moving the employee contribution immediately to 15% with a 3.22% increase?
I could live with that.
Hello, it's fine that you two can agree, but we have to sell it to our members.
If you remember from Leisha's presentation, employee insurance contributions are deducted from wages for the purposes of income tax. So employees are not going to experience a full 1.5% reduction. It's going to be less than that.
Okay, how about increasing insurance contribution to 15%? And we get a 3, 2.5, and 2.
I don't know. It's close. I wish I had a crystal ball for the third year.
Math is easier to explain. We have sacrificed in the past. I think we can get this ratified.
We are getting a little extra benefit in the first year.
Okay, I think we may have a deal.
What do you think?
I think we can sell it.
I think we have a deal.